at the end of Dwarpa Yuga, all the coward men in Vrindavan arranged to worship King Indra. In one particular lecture, which was the first Govardhan Puja in October of 1966 in 26 2nd Avenue, the devotees questioned, what is this? Srila Prabhupada said it's a very, very long story. And then Srila Prabhupada wanted to explain a bit, but he restrained himself. So eventually in that particular talk, Srila Prabhupada said that the Govardhan Puja, not specifically the lifting of Govardhan himself, the Govardhan Puja symbolizes that one should not worship demigods. That's the only lesson he gave in October of 1966. Like that. So later on in Srila Prabhupada's room, going through the courtyard and upstairs, one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, who's a demigod? Then Srila Prabhupada said, well, that is also a very, very long story. Because it's very difficult that, now he has to, sort of teach and train the devotees that they have to worship a hill. Hill. So eventually the devotees realized that they couldn't get it. Like that. So one of the early devotees at that time is well known. At that time, Omapati Prabhu. He mentioned that, whatever Swamiji says is all right. So they asked him why. He said that since we committed ourselves since August of this year, August, September, October, committed themselves for just 3 months. And then, we followed everything he told us. So why don't you just follow this? They said, but hill, worshipping hill. Then Srila Prabhupada started briefly saying, and the same brief sort of overview of the whole Govardhan Puja is given to us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya Lila in chapter 4, text 86. In the essence, it was the same sort of overview or summary. Yeah. So I'll just read it for you. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 4, text 86, purport. Srila Prabhupada says, formerly at the end of Dwarpa Yuga, all the coward men of Vrindavan had arranged to worship King Indra. But they gave this worship up, following the advice of Krishna. So before I read on, one devotee who's sort of a fanatical English expert, like that. And he said that, but how come these words that Prabhupada says, but they gave this worship up? It should be that they gave up this worship. One devotee was saying like that to me. Then I said that, well, Srila Prabhupada said those words and the editors kept it like that. See? And then I gave the example of how is interfering with the sound. Was it okay before this? The sound was okay. Prabhu, the sound was okay before this. Hare Krishna. So then I responded that His Holiness Achyutananda Swami, who first, you could say, sort of translated the songs of the previous acharyas and made that famous book, Songs of the Previous Acharyas, printed by the BBT. Like that. Another devotee went to Srila Prabhupada and said, Achyutananda Swami, his translation is not perfect. Prabhupada said, it is devotionally perfect, accept it. That's famous book, Songs of the Bible. It was mainly Achyutananda Swami who did the translation. So similarly here, Prabhupada says, but they gave this worship up. But in English, they gave up this worship, in proper English. Just thought I'll mention that as a side point. Prabhupada's books are perfect, devotionally perfect. Formerly at the end of Dwapara Yuga, all the coward men of Vrindavan had arranged to worship King Indra, but they gave this worship up, following the advice of Krishna. Instead, they performed a ceremony whereby they worshipped the cows, brahmanas, and Govardhan hill. At that time, Krishna expanded himself and declared, I am Govardhan hill. In this way, he accepted all the paraphernalia and food offered to Govardhan hill. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 24, text 26, and then text 31 to 33, quote, prepare very nice foods of all descriptions from the grains and ghee collected for the yajna. Prepare rice, dal, then halava, pakora, puri, and all kinds of milk preparations like sweet rice, sweet balls, sandesh, rasagola, and laddu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, therefore advised the coward men to stop the Indra Yajna and begin the Govardhan Puja to chastise Indra, who was very much puffed up at being the supreme controller of the heavenly planets. The honest and simple coward men, headed by Nanda Maharaj, accepted Krishna's proposal and executed in detail everything he advised. They performed Govardhan worship and circumambulation of the hill, According to the instruction of Lord Krishna, Nanda Maharaj and the cowherd men called in learned brahmanas and began to worship Govardhan hill by chanting Vedic hymns and offering prasadam. The inhabitants of Vrindavan assembled together, decorated their cows and gave them grass. Keeping the cows in front, they began to circumambulate Govardhan hill. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, Chapter 4, Text 86, purport. In the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada have us understand, describing, quoting Srila Rupa Goswami from Lalita Madhava, that Krishna is never ever shy. And he's naughty, he's boisterous, and he's everything. But he does not exhibit any kind of shyness at all, like that. So then one disciple asked Srila Prabhupada, you mean Krishna is never shy? Yeah. Srila Prabhupada said, yes, he is shy when he lifted Govardhan hill. How? Like that. Because he lifted Govardhan hill not just with the left hand, but with the little finger of the left hand. And then all the gopis were observing Krishna's wonderful achievement. And Krishna was also kind of smiling at the gopis. So when Krishna's glance went over the form of the gopis, like that, from top to bottom, his hand began to shake. And upon seeing his hand shake, all the cowherd men, the elderly men under the hill, they became somewhat disturbed, like that. And they took the sticks, let's help to hold the hill up, like that. And there was a kind of a tumultuous roaring sound. And at the same time, what could their sticks really do? So they began to pray to Krishna. You are lifting it. Somehow you are empowered to lift it. Now you keep it there because we are underneath here. They actually prayed to Krishna for safety. So at this time, Lord Balaram was smiling. And he was thinking, how come our fathers, the elderly men, suddenly they become frightened of the shaking of Govardhan hill, like that. So he looked around, he couldn't figure it out, and suddenly he saw Krishna, like that. See? And when he saw Krishna, and Krishna saw him, because Balaram caught him red-handed, just looking at the gopis, from top to bottom, like that. So then Balaram understood, like that. So when Krishna realized that somebody caught him, like that, Krishna's eyes are very crooked. Crooked? It's like you look at this side, but actually he's looking this way. It's crooked. Tribanga lalitam, he's crooked in three places. And everything about him is crooked. From his eyebrows to his eyes to his lips. Krishna will say one thing and mean another thing. You cannot figure Krishna out. That makes him the Supreme Lord. See? So Balaram understood that he caught Krishna, looking at the transcendental form of the gopis. And then Krishna became shy. And that's it. That's when Srila Prabhupada said that, Krishna, he's holding Govardhan Hill, but he's like, a bit shy. What's going on? He had to close his eyes and pretend he's not looking. And everyone caught that. Prabhupada mentions this, and it's from Lalita Madhava. Prabhupada mentions the Nectar of Devotion. So when Krishna was lifting Govardhan Hill with his left hand, the sort of wind and the rain, accompanied by the Samvartaka clouds, they created a sort of, in other words, Indra was becoming quite bewildered. And he's thinking, I'm throwing this Samvartaka cloud that comes like sheets of mountains of ice. That's the rain. And together with the wind. Like that. So when the Samvartaka clouds touch Govardhan Hill, and the wind also touches Govardhan Hill, they become cushioned in the velocity of force. They become quite cushioned. Okay. And then they create a sort of transcendental breeze that comes underneath by the touch of the devotion of Govardhan. And that transcendental breeze, which is briefly mentioned by Srila Prabhupada also in the act of devotion, creates a sort of, you could say, cooling feeling that scattered the hair, transcendental hair of Krishna, all over his shoulders and his face. Like that. Come on this side. Come through. Come through. So that kind of wind that became a soft breeze made Indra more bewildered. I'm sending this, but they are cushioning their force and going underneath. So that kind of transcendental breeze, by the touch of the devotion of Govardhan on top, who like you could say absorbed the force of the wind and the rain, created sort of a kind of transcendental perspiration feeling and look on the face of Krishna. Okay? But actually he's not perspiring. And the other, it's so difficult for Krishna to hold, he's perspiring. He's perspiring. The residents of Vrindavan were feeling. They're feeling it's like so much effort. And he's still our boy, He's still our boy. It's so much effort. He's holding it, Govardhan Hill with the little finger of his left hand. And Mother Yasoda saw this. She saw this perspiration coming and his hair is moving around by the breeze or the wind, in a sense. And she began to tremble. Oh, my boy, like Dinabandhu says in Vrindavan, my Lala, he's perspiring. Someone help, please help him. Just finger may break. Please help him. Like that. For never a moment Mother Yasoda loses a Vatsalya rasa. For never any moment, she's always Krishna's mother. Always. Although she's seeing this is like completely unique, but no, it may fall. And now he's perspiring. It's like it's effort. He's putting effort. Like that. It may fall. Right? And she stared at this scene with like very wide open eyes. Prabhupada says broadened. He uses that word, broadened eyes. And she saw that Krishna looked at her. And the feeling of Mother Yasoda in the sense of like the fear, they don't know this hill may fall on him first. Rather it falls on me first and he comes underneath me. It's my son. Like that. So Krishna saw the feeling of fear. So Krishna, he, sort of, like a vacuum, he pulled that feeling of Mother Yasoda's fear into his own personality to give a joy. And what did he do? He looked at her and he exhibited varieties of, Prabhupada says, facial caricatures. He's like showing us some funny faces. This boy is happy, and then she starts smiling because the fear is absorbed through Krishna's showing all these like funny faces to her. Prabhupada says facial caricatures. Like that. Then Mother Yasoda became very happy and she started smiling and everyone's looking at, who is Krishna looking at? And they see Mother Yasoda and Mother Yasoda is completely transfixed and simply smiling at Krishna, not knowing, she's completely oblivious of everyone looking at her. She's smiling like that. Then again, immediately when she realized that all focus, because there's a lot of transcendental energy of the entire Vrajavas is looking at Mother Yasoda and its effect. Oh, everyone looking at me. Okay. So when everyone's looking at Mother Yasoda, and then again she thought, oh, this Krishna is holding this hill for such an extremely long time, and then her clothes became wet with perspiration. See? So Krishna sort of, it's all a transcendental exchange. It cannot be understood on the material platform. Sort of gave her, okay, you absorb my perspiration so that because you're my mother. And when she's perspiring, then she feels so much affection for Krishna, even while lifting Govardhan hill. And at that time, Prabhupada calls her Vrajeshwari. That's how she gets the name Vrajeshwari, Vraja Ishwari. That she can absorb everything, all the anxiety of all the Brijbasis into a transcendental form, like that. In other words, and Srila Prabhupada says, just by the potency of Vrajeshwari, Vraja Ishwari, Mother Yasoda, she can protect the entire whole universe by her infinite mercy. Prabhupada's exact, by her infinite mercy. Yeah. So in this example, we can see the whole feature of Vatsalya Rasa, parental love, are there. And it gives the secondary rasas of dread and wonder, adbhuta rasa, and laughter, asya rasa, and compassion. My boy, it's too much for him. Not sort of feeling sorry, but a type of transcendental compassion. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he singled out a particular composition of his own in relation to Krishna, in relation to Govardhan Hill. It's a very beautiful prayer, and the more we meditate on this prayer for today, the more we get the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself. Okay, so you can repeat after me. Vamas Tamarasa Akshasya Bhuja Danda Sa Patuva Krida Kandu Katam Yena Nito Govardhano Giri. So I'll just say the prayer myself now. Vamas Tama Rakshasya Vamas Tamara Sakshasya Bhuja Danda Sapatuva Krida Kandu Katam Yena Nito Govardhano Giri. This is from Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 18, text 38. Now let's repeat Srila Prabhupada's translation so that the prayer has meaning for us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, everyone, may the left arm of Sri Krishna, whose eyes are like the petals of a lotus flower, always protect you. With his left arm, he raised Govardhan Hill as if it were a toy. So this is Mahaprabhu's prayers for us. He says, may that personality always protect you. He's praying for us. So here in Mayapur in the early days, one day, which was the day of Govardhan Puja, His Holiness Jayapataka Swami recalls that they built this huge mountain of rice and which fed many people. So the people, after honoring this huge hill of rice, Govardhan Hill, they took their leaf plates after taking prasad and they threw them behind the building here. Then Srila Prabhupada was, as we know, living on the second floor of this particular building on this side. So he got up and he walked to the back on the veranda behind his room. Then he looked over and he saw that there was this big pile of leaf plates that was like used to honor this rice prasadam of Govardhan Hill. And some people, the public came, they were being fed, but they didn't really finish everything on the plate. And they threw it like that. So some remnants of the pilgrims was on the plates like that. And he saw that there was some poor children, very, very poor children, and they had sticks in their hand. like that. And they were fighting off some very growling, hungry dogs on Govardhan Puja Day. Yeah. And they were trying to get the scraps of food that the people have not finished eating, which was still on the paper, on the leaf plates. So when Srila Prabhupada saw that these children were so hungry that they had to fight, practically with the dogs to get these scraps of food, immediately tears in his eyes swelled up and they were like pouring down. They were just pouring down. And then he gave that famous instruction that we have to see that nobody goes hungry within a 10-mile radius of this temple. That's how we began the prasadam distribution. And then Srila Prabhupada said that this temple is a home for God. And God is everyone's father. Krishna is everyone's father. So in the presence of the Father, the Son doesn't go hungry. So we have to make arrangements, Prabhupada said, that people get fed. These are these words on that particular day. Such an ocean of compassion. Srila Prabhupada. Then we are aware that in the last days of Srila Prabhupada, he expressed his desire to go to Govardhan, to celebrate Govardhan Puja with the other residents of Vrindavan. It is well known that because of Srila Prabhupada's last desire to go to Govardhan to celebrate Govardhan Puja, devotees come to the conclusion that his eternal identity is that he is a resident at Govardhan. They come to that kind of, you could say, educated conclusion, in a sense, like that. Yeah. And he wanted to make the journey on a bullock cart, but he was just bones, in a sense, externally. Just lying on his bed. And he said he wants to camp there at Govardhan. Go on a bullock cart and even stay there, camp there. So as soon as Srila Prabhupada expressed this desire, his disciples became divided in two opinions. One opinion was Srila Prabhupada's condition is too delicate and fragile and he should never bear the journey, and that he will definitely give up his life just even going on the bullock cart, what to speak of going there. Okay. And the other opinion was, no, Srila Prabhupada is our spiritual master. We should fulfill his desire, and it is our duty to obey his instructions and take him to Govardhan. Okay. And we should follow this without question, but with faith. So two transcendental opinions were there, and it was a fight. It was quite a fight, actually. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada didn't have no power even to sit up, so to speak, winding up his manifest Leela. What to speak of moving? Okay. And he will just lie there on his bed, and often throughout, he would ask for the opinions of different devotees, and they gave different views. But Srila Prabhupada eventually also remained adamant that he wants to go to Govardhan and perform Govardhan Puja. Now we know his disappearance there is 2 days later. It's coming on Monday. So this is also 2 days earlier before he could wind up his manifest pastimes with us. So, Srila Prabhupada's condition was so delicate, and the devotees just felt, Prabhupada wants to just leave us. By fulfilling this desire, he just wants to leave us, but not in this way, not on the way to Govardhan. He just can't leave like that. So, there was only 2 or 3 days left before Govardhan Puja, and as the day of Govardhan Puja drew closer, all the devotees were very fearful that Srila Prabhupada's health became more and more serious, and they were anxious. So finally, the day before the Govardhan Puja, which is like the anniversary of yesterday, Srila Prabhupada's godbrother came. His favorite godbrother. Who knows? Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj. His famous godbrother came to visit. And His Holiness Bhakti Swami was one of the devotees who felt that Srila Prabhupada should never ever go on this bullock cart. And he took advantage of his Bengali culture. And before Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj went to see Srila Prabhupada, he caught him aside. And he spoke to him in Bengali. This is the situation. Like that. So then he wanted that Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj to request Srila Prabhupada not to even consider traveling on this bullock cart to Govardhan Hill. He wanted Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj to tell Srila Prabhupada. So meanwhile, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhavananda Maharaj at that time had been in Srila Prabhupada's quarters but upstairs. And they were discussing themselves, and they were in so much anxiety, they were quite besides themselves. No, this is not going to happen. Practically they were getting mad and crazy. Okay. So they didn't know what to do and what to say to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was so insistent. At one time in Srila Prabhupada's life, he said, I always did what I wanted to do. Even with my father. Nobody could change my determination. If I want to do something, I do. Actual natural leader from those days. Yeah. So then Tamal Krishna Goswami and Bhavananda Maharaj, they came down to Srila Prabhupada's room, and they saw Bhakti Charu Swami and Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj were already seated by Prabhupada's bed. So they said, Srila Prabhupada, we are in too much anxiety. We don't know what to do. Please do not go. Yeah? And then Srila Prabhupada responded. Because he saw Tamal Krishna Goswami's face. Usually he's not an emotional person, if you know him. He's like, but you could see this person was completely, it's like pleading, begging. Don't go. Like that. Yeah. Then Srila Prabhupada said, all right, I shall not put you into so much anxiety. I shall do as you request. So immediately, Srila Prabhupada told to Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, just see how much affection they have for me. Then Tamal Krishna Goswami responded, Srila Prabhupada, the way you are dealing with us is one day before Govardhan Puja. It's simply that we are deepening our attachment for you at every moment. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that is my duty. It's kind of true. We really don't know Radha Krishna. We really, even if you come from Indian background and you read Bhagavad Gita, we really don't know. But we know Srila Prabhupada, who knows Radha Krishna. That sense should be there for us. So after Govardhan Puja, Srila Prabhupada, gradually withdrew his external consciousness. And we know as 2 days later didn't manifest any external consciousness except in the morning. So that morning the doctor came in, Kaviraj, and asked Srila Prabhupada to take some medicine. So Srila Prabhupada responded in Hindi to the Kaviraj. Practically some of his very last words. He said, Meri kuch icha nahi, which means, I have no desire. Then about 7:26 that evening, Srila Prabhupada, surrounded by loving devotees, chanted Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and the devotees are chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and he simply winded up his manifest pastimes, which is 2 days after Govardhan Puja. After that, after Srila Prabhupada was placed in Samadhi, the devotees took a very small deity of Srila Prabhupada for Govardhan Parikrama. Maybe a week or so later, I'm not sure. And all the devotees on the Parikrama actually felt Srila Prabhupada's presence. Yeah. And eventually when they brought Srila Prabhupada's small deity to Radhakund, and they immersed Srila Prabhupada in the waters of Radhakund. And that is the first time that Srila Prabhupada took bath in Radhakund, the deity form. Otherwise, I did the research, there's no other time he took bath in Radhakund. He took bath in Radhakund. There was only one time in his last days when Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj came to visit him, and then Srila Prabhupada requested Niskinchana Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, can you take bath for me in Radhakund? But Srila Prabhupada himself did not really take bath. So here in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he established a replica of Vrindavan with Shyamakund and Radhakund and Giriraj Govardhan. Yeah. And it's like the size of this, half the size of this room. Have you been there? In the Gaudiya Math, where Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Samadhi is. Yeah. So if you go there, even today you'll see there's a beautiful verse on the top, which you can read, and we can also say the verse now. You can say after me. Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namine Ashesha Klesha Nasaya Paramananda Dayine. And you can repeat the translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the King of Mountains, whose name is Govardhan. He destroys limitless afflictions, and he bestows the highest bliss. Yes. So it is well known when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was about to leave this world also in Kolkata, then he was brought here. He was also repeatedly saying the same verse, that he wants residence at the foothills of Giriraj, Govardhan. Similarly, our Srila Prabhupada was a very intimate and probably within our ISKCON the foremost disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We can safely say that within ISKCON. So they both wanted a residence in Govardhan. So then Srila Prabhupada used to say that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that he was disgusted with his leading disciples of fighting, and therefore he decided to leave early. See? So just a few days before Govardhan Puja in 1977 November in Vrindavan, one disciple was so desperate that Srila Prabhupada, you should not leave us. And he said, I will say anything for this. I will say anything for this. So he approached Srila Prabhupada. Imagine, it's like Prabhupada hardly can speak, and so forth. And the words coming out with great effort, and so forth. And he said, Srila Prabhupada, you told us that your Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was disgusted with his leading disciples and therefore he left early. And then he was desperate. Then he said, is this the same of you now? That you want to leave early? Then Srila Prabhupada said, no. He said, in fact, all of you are my best association. Very like with great effort. All of you in ISKCON are my best association. So later on when I asked him, when this happened, he said, how do you mean that? He said, Srila Prabhupada didn't have anybody. He didn't have the association of his God brothers. We were his association. He created his own association. So therefore he said, in fact, all of you are my best association. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Govardhan Puja Mahamotsav ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki, Natai Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So we'll go for Darshanati. Hare Krishna.